As a fan of dark humor and strangely violent cartoons like Metalocalypse, it's kind of funny that I don't often find myself playing gory video games. But something about the cartoony violence of Haimrick, coupled with its hilarious dialogue, got me interested, and so that is why I chose it for today's first impressions video, where I tell you a little bit more about this game and my impressions after the first couple hours of playing it. In Haimrick, you play Haimrick, a young scribe in a medieval village where people don't really read. So you're not the most popular of guys and your job isn't the most desired. There seems to be big changes afoot as very quickly and early on in the game you discover a magical book that puts you as the leader of the revolution against an evil king and connects you with an unlikely sidekick, a hungry lioness named Masamba who sees you as her refillable snack box due to the healing properties of said magical book. There is a lot happening, so just be prepared to read and don't be afraid to slow down, particularly when running through the reading cutscenes, and just absorb all this information you're being provided. While you do interact with other characters in a 2D village type or overworld situation, the main gameplay happens while inside this magical, or perhaps cursed, depending on your perspective, book. Not only does the sense of humor and cartoony gore make Haimrick stand apart, the gameplay is all based on words. You need to be able to quickly read the text below your feet and figure out the keywords you can use to drop supplies, weapons, and environmental effects to help your goals. I loved seeing what I could combine and draw from the words to create something useful for myself. Seeing words like sword, crossbow, and bucket are pretty obvious nouns that you'll need to use, but what's interesting is when the puzzles get more complex. You eventually have to play with order and even time, and pick up items together to create new ones. Coupled with the incredible sepia-toned art style, which I actually found I loved way more than I would ever have thought, this was a game I wanted to spend a lot of time in. These characters are so expressive, and the dialogue actually had me laughing out loud at a couple points. Again, it can get gory, which is part of the fun. People's faces melt off, bodies explode, blood will gush, but for whatever reason, I loved it, so go figure. While the focus of the game was on the word puzzle mechanics, I felt that there were occasionally parts of these puzzles where I'd find myself losing momentum. Most notably, this happened when I had to directly combat enemies. There are some interesting options provided, for example getting the choice between throwing dynamite instead of using a sword in direct combat, but these controls felt a bit soft and slow sometimes, and I found my mind wandering a bit, particularly when repeating a section meant moving back through 3 levels of platforms that I had previously cleared. Slower readers may also find this game frustrating at first as well, particularly with some of the boss battles, because you do have to read quickly, and you may find yourself dying as a result of trying to read and play at the same time. But the game does quickly reset you to a close-by checkpoint, and I never felt punished harshly for any of my deaths. At that point, it was a matter of me getting to know the words that were about to come up. The game does a great job of emphasizing and trying to help you by color-coding words that you might need to interact with, as well as highlighting words with sparkling stars, especially if you've died a couple times and the game thinks you may need a hint. Lastly, very small detail, but I also wish the soundtrack had a bit of a longer loop. But the music is enjoyable, I just happened to notice it in a couple of the sections when I was hanging out and exploring a little bit more. So, would I recommend Haimrick based off of my first impression and hours of gameplay? Yes! Its art style and unique gameplay have me hooked, and I'm excited to see the challenges increase as I progress in the game. The controls can be a little bit slower and less precise than I'd prefer them to be, but for the most part, it didn't impact my enjoyment of the game. Haimrick's out now, so if you've tried it, let me know what you think in the comments below, and if you haven't, maybe consider checking it out. And if you enjoy learning about indie games and discovering these hidden indie gems, be sure to follow this channel because that is what I do here. I feature indie games, go to indie game events, and yeah, I talk a lot about indie games. I love it. I also live stream almost every day, whether it's at twitch.tv/utomic, which is my work stream, and then also at twitch.tv/Kimchica, which is my personal stream, so either one I would love to have you there. I primarily focus on indie games for both channels. So I hope to see you either here again or on a live stream someday, and I hope you guys are finding awesome games to play, and I hope you have a wonderful day.